everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another news update. We have some news on Brock Lesnar's rumoured opponent for SummerSlam, which could potentially, depending on whether he decides to go back to the UFC or not, be his last big marquee WWE match. You know, maybe he'll even drop the belt to this person. We also have some news on a very peculiar match that went on over at Impact Wrestling, and we have some news of an excellent match that happened elsewhere in the world, which Dave Meltzer once again broke his own 5-star rating system for. And Enzo Amore released another song, and it's not very good. So yeah, let's crack on with it and let's take a look at all of the news. So according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Brock Lesnar's rumoured opponent for SummerSlam is none other than the big dog, Roman Reigns. Now, Reigns has obviously had matches with Lesnar before. He lost to him in the main event of WrestleMania 34. Clean, despite kicking out of a lot of F5s. I think it was 5 F5s he may have kicked out of. He also lost to him in the main event of the Greatest Royal Rumble, or like the semi-main event, the co-main event, in that steel cage match where it was a bit of an unclear decision. It looked at first like Lesnar had hit the floor first, but they gave it to Lesnar, but then Reigns may have hit the floor first. It was that one with the dodgy refereeing decision, and the referee then had to tweet out an apology as if it was his fault. So yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, because obviously Roman's had 2 chances now and not taken either of them. But at the same time, apparently, according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, the reason that this is so apparent is because commentary have really been hyping up the injustice that Reigns lost at the Greatest Royal Rumble, and they've really been hammering that home, and that, you know, seems to indicate that a rematch will be forthcoming at some point, most likely at SummerSlam. However, Meltzer was keen to point out that this is not 100% confirmed yet, and that from what he knows, Vince could just change his mind at any point on a whim and just change the match, put in someone else like Rollins, who's been really hot recently, or even Strowman, although his star has faded a little bit over the past few months. But for now, apparently, the key guy is once again Roman Reigns. Now let's talk about a match that happened last night on Impact Wrestling, where Eddie Edwards and Sami Callihan had a fight in the woods. Just a straight up fight in the woods. It was quite an opinion dividing one. It was shot in that sort of weird, very stylistic cinematography sort of style that they did for like previous matches, like the Final Deletion, but also that they've done in backstage promos and stuff like that, particularly those regarding like creepy guys like Abyss, that sort of thing. Lots of swooping camera and dark shots and stuff. I'm not the person to talk about cinematography. I'm just sort of saying words. But it was shot in that sort of fairly distinctive style, and it was a weird one. Basically what happened was Edwards was winning the match. They've been in a really like heated blood feud, and even though Edwards is the babyface, he's been embracing some more heelish tendencies to really beat up Sami Callihan. He grabbed like the skull of a cow at one point and stabbed him with the horn of it, which is a bull, and stabbed him with the horn of it, which is, you know, pretty brutal. And then Sami Callihan fled when Dreamer showed up and tried to talk Edwards down and stuff. But it shows, I guess, that Impact are still interested in keeping their product different and still interested in occasionally using this sort of strange cinematography style, having matches out in locations outside of the Impact zone, and really continuing to provide an alternative, even though their wackier figures like the Hardys have gone back to WWE. It'll be interesting to see when the next match in this sort of style happens again in Impact. They seem to happen sort of 2 or 3 times a year, although that might have just been when Matt Hardy was doing his thing. But it'll be interesting to see when the next one comes along and how frequently these sort of strange backstage / outdoor, highly shot, don't know what I'm talking about, but you know what I mean, that sort of style, how often those matches continue to happen and at what frequency. And finally, let's take a look over at Japan, where a few days ago, Hiromu Takahashi and Taiji Ishimori had that Best of the Super Juniors final, and it's another one of those matches that's broke Dave Meltzer's rating system. He awarded it 5.5 stars. I sound really harsh now. Personally, I think it's, you know what, I think it's a 5-star match, absolutely. I think it's a match of the year contender and stuff, but I don't know if it's good enough to break the rating system for. It's not as good as an Omega Okada in my opinion, but it was still a very, very good match. Still very good indeed. Meltzer said it was the best of the Super Juniors final in the history of the competition. I don't know the finals well enough. I don't know about back in the 80s, the 90s and stuff. I don't really know some of those finals well enough, but it's certainly the best one that I can ever remember watching, and I've only watched like the past few from the sort of last 5 years or so. There was ones involving Devitt or Finn Balor as we now know him, but this one was absolutely the best. It was particularly impressive because Ishimori is, you know, reinvented himself as this Bullet Club member, like in the Bone Soldier guys and everything, and he's just taken to it like a duck to water. He wrestles a very direct, hard-hitting style, whereas Takahashi is a bit more frantic and crazy, but it meshed really well. They were brawling in the crowd, they came out to the ring, there were great exchanges, great sequences, and everything made sense. So even though I think it was, if I was using Meltzer's rating system, I would have probably given it 5 stars, and I don't particularly agree with what he's done, I still think it's newsworthy. It's certainly worth mentioning that it's yet another match that has broken his rating system with 5.5 stars. And that's all for now. Thank you very well. Enzo Amore released another rap song. It's less controversial than the last one, but it is still not very good. Still pretty bad music. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Thank you very much for watching this news video. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack the Chopper. You can follow all of us if you want at Cultaholic. Wow. And check out Patreon as well if you want, patreon.com/Cultaholic. And never ever forget, of course, to join us.